Hey everybody, I hope you guys are doing super well. I'm so excited for today's video in which I will be talking about one of my favorite things in the world, thrifting. Thrifting has become super popular in the last few years, and with that there have been a few ethical concerns to thrifting that many people have expressed. So today I wanted to kind of dive into those ethical dilemmas revolving thrifting and kind of give you my take on them. Just a disclaimer, this is my opinion and take it with a grain of salt. I'm just here to kind of tell you guys my opinion based on the facts that I know, but if you guys know anything that I didn't mention or I don't seem to know, please let me know, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow, and that's how we make smarter and better decisions. So that all being said, let's get into the video. So first, I think it's important to differentiate thrift stores and consignment stores from one another. Thrift stores are stores like Goodwill and Salvation Army that are nonprofits. They take donations and people who donate to them don't get anything back in return. And then consignment stores are stores like Buffalo Exchange, where you can trade in your clothing for store credit or some other incentive. And so stores like Buffalo Exchange that are consignment stores are more selective with what they take in. They don't take everything in, while stores like Goodwill tend to take everything in collection bins or whatever means they have, and then they sort through it and decide what's ready to go onto the racks and be sold, hopefully. So I'm going to start by talking about the few ethical dilemmas that many people have brought up regarding thrifting. So the first one is that people kind of want to bring to light the fact that thrift stores were really designed for people who are of lower socioeconomic status to be able to buy clothes, home goods, toys at a lower price point than what retail offers. And so people often say that if you can afford new or retail clothes, then you should buy those and you should leave thrift stores for people who truly can't afford new retail clothes. So I want to dispute this point by talking about the surplus of clothes that thrift stores get in donations. There is far more clothes that are donated than those that are purchased, and in fact only about 20 to 25% of clothes that thrift stores get are sold at the thrift stores. So clearly there's a huge gap between what is donated and what is actually sold. It's really significant, and it's important to know that these like 80% of clothes, say, that don't get purchased at thrift stores, they end up being exported to countries in Africa and kind of decimating those countries' garment industries. And they also get burned, they get sent to textile recycling. They lose their value as clothes because there's not enough people who want to buy them. I think this gap, which is so large, exists for a few different reasons. One is that people donate fugly things and things that are ruined or stained, whatever. But one way to go around this is by thrift flipping. So I'm so excited that this has been a new trend, kind of reviving old t-shirts, whatever, and turning them into something awesome just with some creativity and some time. So I think that's an amazing trend that will really help to reduce the gap between what is donated at thrift stores and what is sold at thrift stores. Another reason I think this gap exists on such a large scale is that there's still a stigma surrounding shopping at Goodwill or Salvation Army. If more people from all income brackets participated in the secondhand market, there would be less clothing waste generated overall. Because of this gap between what is donated and what is sold, I think it's really important that we encourage people to thrift, and people of all socioeconomic statuses, because there's a surplus of clothing and there's a surplus of clothing waste. And the only way to fix that is by encouraging people to buy used instead of buying new, because it really closes the gap. It reinforces a circular economy and it reduces overall waste generated. The second main complaint that people have expressed with thrift stores, and it's totally valid, is kind of the gentrification of thrift stores, meaning that its initial purpose has kind of been pushed to the side to make room for people like young people my age who love to thrift and do it not because of necessity but because it's fun, and that the increase in demand for thrifted goods has led to an increase in prices of thrift store items. Now this might be true for consignment stores, but this is not really the case for thrift stores like Goodwill and Salvation Army. Many of these stores have set prices, and they are designed to be inclusive stores for people who are of lower socioeconomic status and can't maybe afford new retail clothes. So from what I've seen, prices at Goodwill and Salvation Army and other thrift stores like that remain relatively stagnant, and they still have amazing sales, like, you know, first Saturday of the month at Goodwill, and blue tags, red tags, orange tags, 20% off, whatever percent off. They still have these amazing deals. So the second main argument that I've seen with thrifting is so valid, and I have seen it with my own eyes. It's basically that people often are going into thrift stores and then getting items, selling them on places like Depop, Poshmark, with super marked up prices and misleading information about the product. So if you buy a shirt like this from Goodwill for $2.99, and then you don't know a brand, you don't see a brand, but you put vintage or 60s vintage shirt on your Depop listing and charge $29.99, that's a very, very common thing to do. And I've even seen like videos and tweets about someone who has gotten something off of Depop that was so... I've even seen tweets and accounts of people who have purchased something off of Depop or an app similar, and they had bought it for like over $20, but when they got it, the tag was still on from like Goodwill that said like less than $5. And so obviously the problem here is that people are shopping. This is a tricky situation because I don't want to discourage people from, you know, generating a stream of income and making a living off of shopping for others and reselling clothes. I think that's amazing, but I think it goes too far when you're writing misleading titles and captions, descriptions about what the product is. If you don't know that it's vintage, don't write that it's vintage. If you don't know that it's a brand, don't write that it's a brand. And if you know that it's worth less than you've listed it as, list it as less. You know, you shouldn't be upcharging people 200-300% for an item that cost you less than $5. It really peeves me when I see things on Depop that I have definitely seen at thrift stores for significantly less. And I think that it's important that even if you are trying to make a living off of reselling clothing on apps like Depop, you be mindful that thrifting should be accessible for all and not just for people who can afford it. That's almost like a 180 of what thrifting was designed for. It's designed to be an inclusive way for people to participate in resale and exchange. So if you haven't figured it out already, so that they can reduce their environmental footprint and also save not less, regardless of socioeconomic status, but you should be thrifting consciously. And now I want to give you 3 pointer tips on how to thrift consciously. My first tip is to avoid buying clothes that are plus sized. This is a big problem because people who are plus size tend to only find their sizes in fast fashion brands, and sustainable or ethical fashion brands tend to not be size inclusive. So the only options for people who are plus size are typically thrifting or buying from fast fashion brands. So if people are kind of taking all of the stock at thrift stores of plus sizes, then it kind of relegates them to only buy from fast fashion brands, which we don't want to do. So I would advise you to stick within your size. Obviously, if you want to oversize something, you can get that, but try not to buy a ton of items all the time that are way above your size. The second tip is that if you buy from thrift stores, donate to thrift stores. It's a super simple idea that if you want to participate in something, you should not only benefit from it but also contribute to it. And I think that donating your old clothes to thrift stores, ones that you can't really resell because they're not relevant, like maybe t-shirts from your old sorority, whatever, I think that is a really great opportunity to give back to the thrift stores that you gain so much from. And my third and final tip is to really be mindful of what you're pricing your clothes at if you are reselling thrifted items. Make sure that you're making a profit, but not doing so through like exploiting others and misleading others with false information. I think a really good way to think about pricing is to think about the time that it took you to find that item, and that on top of the item's cost originally. You can still make a significant profit off of this method, but it's doing so in a way that's more conscious and truthful to others. So those are my 3 tips. 1, don't buy plus size clothing at thrift stores. 2, try to donate to thrift stores as much as you buy from them. And then 3, avoid upcharging crazy amounts for resale thrifted items on apps like Depop. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this conversation, and I would love to hear what you guys think about thrifting, the ethical dilemmas associated with it, and how you reconcile them with your love for thrifting. Make sure you subscribe and comment down below because it would mean the world to me, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!